friends, how are you today? Thank you for being here. Are you trying to figure out if you may or may not be autistic? Are you trying to figure out if the issues that you face are normal? Are you trying to understand someone who's autistic a little bit better? Do you just want to learn more about autism? Or maybe a little bit more about me? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then please continue watching, because in this video, I'm going to explain my sensory issues. I really hope you guys will stick around to the end of this video because I have an important question to ask you, and it's to do with next week's video. What are sensory issues, Paige? What a good question. I appreciate you asking questions here. Everybody knows we have the 5 senses, and actually there are a lot more than 5 senses. Specifically today, we are going to talk about 7 of them. Sensory issues basically means that there are some things that make our senses very unhappy, and then they make us very unhappy. So today I want to show you what my sensory issues are, because as you will see, in some of my senses I'm hypersensitive, and in some of them I'm hyposensitive, which means I either experience sensation in that sense too much or not enough. Knowing if you are hypersensitive or hyposensitive to certain stimuli can be pretty important if you are a person that experiences sensory issues, because then you will know what kind of things to look out for and what you can do to make your environment the best one for you, and also what other people can do to accommodate your environment as well. Because having sensory issues can make things difficult sometimes. A lot of things. A lot of the times. I don't think there's one sense that I am not hypersensitive or hyposensitive. Like, for example, I know that I'm hypersensitive to different smells, and that can make things that I put on my body to make me smell good very difficult to find. Because yes, something might smell good, but is it good for me? Am I okay to be wearing this thing? I get really nervous to buy new perfumes, because what if I try it out and I wear it for a few days and I actually hate it, or it bothers me? Do you know what I'm saying? Do you feel what I'm saying? If you relate to that, I actually have something for you. Let me talk to you about the sponsor for this video, Scentbird, now in Canada. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service that gives you the opportunity to shop from over 600 different brands. Scentbird lets you choose a new designer fragrance every month for just $16. We all know that I'm hypersensitive to different smells, and also that perfumes change their smell throughout the day to react with your pheromones. And it can be tough to find a perfume that works for you when you only get to really try it out in the store or those little sample bottles. With Scentbird, their vials are 8 times bigger than perfume samples. And it gives you a chance to try a really nice perfume for a whole month before you commit to buying the full bottle. You can choose a 3, 6, or a 12-month subscription, which is a perfect gift for your family during the holidays. Or if a gift set is more their speed, no problem. Check out Scentbird's perfume and cologne gift sets. Scentbird works directly with top designer brands, as well as indie labels, The Harmonist, and Confessions of a Rebel. And if you don't know what perfume you even want, because that's where I was at, I've been looking for like my signature scent for like ever now. I know I like more of a unisex vibe, so I took Scentbird's quiz to try to match me up with fragrances that I'd like, and they picked some good ones. One that I definitely want to highlight is Red Panda from Sanctuary. 100% of all the proceeds from this fragrance will be donated to the Red Panda Network. Some other scents I want to touch on are Velvet Fire from The Harmonist. Then I have Amber Gaze as well, which is more of a feminine scent. We've got Memoir Archives by the Sea, and this one really does make you feel like you're in the ocean. And then my 5th fragrance is Catherine Malandrino Transcendent. It's very sophisticated, very classy. And if y'all are ready to try out Scentbird and find your signature fragrance, then be sure to use my code Paige Layle for 30% off for first month with Scentbird, which is just $11. Right in the description, and you can go click in there and make sure you use my code Paige Layle for 30% off your first month with Scentbird. I do have a lot more issues with a lot of the other senses. Let's get into it. You and I are going to go through each of the 7 senses, and I'm going to tell you about what my issues are with each of them. The first sense we're going to talk about is the sense of sight. The first thing with sight is that I actually have excellent vision. I can see very well. My vision is better than the average. I can see very fine details, and I can see from a very far place away. I often see things that others don't. That's not just because I'm autistic, that's because I have really good eyesight. And that's not really a problem for me. The thing that is a problem for me is that I am hypersensitive to light. Now, you could argue it is because I have very light eyes. This is a fact. I do have very light eyes, and it is a known fact that people with light eyes are more sensitive to light in their eyeballs. When lights are too bright, or when I'm outside and the sun is shining too much, I will get a headache. I am often squinting, my eyes are often watering. In high school, I was prescribed sunglasses to wear all the time, including inside the school, including in the winter, which is when it's actually the worst because the sun is reflecting off the white snow, and then no matter what you do, there's light blinding you everywhere you turn. Did I continue to wear them that whole whole time? No, I did not, because I was nervous of being made fun of for wearing sunglasses inside. This one was a little difficult for me as a performer. I was often on stage, singing, acting, dancing, doing all three at the same time, and there are lights that are shining on you constantly. My friends and family would ask me, "Did you see me in the crowd? I was waving to you." No, I cannot see anything. It's like off the stage, the rest is just the sun. I can't see anything. So I got a little used to it. I learned where I can place my eyes so that it doesn't bother me as much. So that's one way of accommodating it. Another one is to wear sunglasses. Another one, if you're not me, is you could wear a hat, but I don't like hats. That's on another sensory issue. We are going to move down the face, and so the second sense that we're going to talk about is the sense of hearing. Because technically your ears come before your nose. They taught you that in art class. My problem with hearing is that I have audio processing disorder. So if you want to tell me what to do, you're going to have to write it down. Because if you're telling me to do something, I will not understand what you're saying. It takes a minute for the words to make sense in my brain, for the words to actually have meaning, and then I have to hear and understand the words, connect the word with the meaning or whatever picture I have in my head of what the thing is, and then understand what is being said. But that can be hard, and people don't always like that. Sometimes if I can't understand what someone is saying, I will just zone out and I will ask for further clarification in written form. So please do it in a way that I understand. It shouldn't be that hard, and then I can do the job correctly for you. Funny enough, I'm hyposensitive to hearing things, especially if I'm focused on something. If someone is trying to call my name, oftentimes I will not respond. There has been probably hundreds of incidents where someone was trying to talk to me while I was doing something, while I was out in public, and I just didn't know that they were even talking to me. And when I look back on those times, I can't remember seeing them or knowing that they were trying to talk to me. I wasn't ignoring them, I just didn't hear them. I'm not very good with a lot of noises happening at once. If a noise is very complex, that's harder to digest for sure, and that can not be good. But when it comes to the volume of a noise, doesn't bother me too much. For example, I can listen to my music or listen to a TV show very loud, and that's not going to bother me. I can sleep at night with a loud TV show going, or the fan really loud, or even someone talking in the next room. The volume doesn't bother me so much, especially if it's controlled, if I get to decide that that's the volume that I want it to be. But when sounds are very complex, that makes it difficult. That includes multiple conversations happening at once. When you're in a crowded grocery store, there's lots of different noises and they're happening at all different directions. And I feel like I need to focus on every single noise every time and see where it's going and look at where it's going. Restaurants is another hard one for me because there's so many conversations happening everywhere you go. School was a hard one for me too. I would often walk the halls with my earbuds in. And now when I go out to places, I always make sure I have some earplugs with me. If you're anything like me, make sure you also have things that you can plug your ears with if the sounds get too much. Moving down to the next sense, and that is the sense of smell. I am hypersensitive to smells. I notice a lot of smells very quickly. I often notice when someone is wearing a new perfume or cologne. I often notice if someone has washed their hands and changed their hand soap. If someone has changed their shampoo, their conditioner, their body wash. Did you just put on hand sanitizer? That's pumpkin apple from Bath & Body Works. That's one of their fall scents. I can smell what foods are going bad in the fridge and pick out the food directly most of the time. Usually I can even smell if something's wrong with my dog. The funny thing is though, I can't identify the smell. I have a hard time identifying what it is that I'm actually smelling. I just smell it and it smells big. And that's all I can really say. Some smells I do enjoy more than others, that is for sure. But it's funny because even if something has a nice smell, I have a hard time placing it. And if you say, that's lavender, I'm like, got it. That is what lavender smells like. The next time I smell lavender, I do not remember that that's what lavender smells like. You would think that my smell has a better memory considering the place for smell and the place for memory in your brain are right next to each other. One of my favorite smells is peppermint. I often carry around a little peppermint oil everywhere I go, and I like to smell it when I get stressed or when things just seem too much. If there's too much going on with my other senses, peppermint is a really strong one that I can use for my already really strong nose. Smell it and kind of get out of the headspace of all the other things going on. One of my least favorite smells is actually fabric softener or that whole clean laundry thing. I have very specific things that I want my laundry to smell like, and none of them are the classic clean laundry smell. It is so strong. It is so punchy. It wants to punch you in the nose. I don't like that. I also do not like the scent of lemon. Lemon also burns way too much in the nose. Burns through my brain, burns. I like peppermint. I like the smell of pumpkin. Usually any of my smells have something to do with peppermint. Except when it comes to the things that I use in the shower, whatever I use in the shower is fragrance free for that purpose. So most of them smell like nothing. They just kind of smell like soap. My next sense I would like to talk about is the sense of taste. This one's fun because I am hyposensitive to taste. So I do not taste a lot of things. I think this one's a little funny because it's more of a common autistic thing to be hypersensitive to taste, to have safe foods that you eat only these things. And that can do with texture as well as taste, but I am more so the opposite. I've always been an oral stimmer. I like things in my mouth. I always have. I stim a lot by putting things in my mouth. Texture doesn't bother me too much. A lot of people don't like seafood for the texture. I cannot relate. Mushrooms for the texture, also can't relate. The only texture that I don't like is mushy. So I like to cut up a banana into small pieces so it's not a lot of mushy in my mouth. And I also do not like mushy potatoes. Actually, I don't really like potatoes in the first place. I like French fries. I don't really like potatoes. I don't like them mashed. I don't like them boiled. I just don't like potatoes. I think that also has to do with the fact that I'm hyposensitive to taste means that I go for extreme flavors and extreme flavor combinations. I think it's because everything in my mouth already feels boring. So if it's extra boring, like a cracker or a potato, I just do not enjoy it. It is not enough. I enjoy a lot of spices, a lot of seasoning, a lot of hot sauce. Hot sauce is one of my favorite things. My mouth is literally watering. My mouth loves hot sauce. And I like pretty much all foods. I have a hard time eating meat that has a lot of fat on it. And that is because I don't like the texture of fat in my mouth, the mushy of fat, not good. I'm not a huge fan of potatoes. I don't like spaghetti noodles very much. I don't like that. It's too much work. And all the stuff slides off. It doesn't make sense. Use a different noodle. They all taste the same. Use a different shape. And the one food that I don't like that I actually won't eat is olives. I've tried eating olives. I've tried a lot. I bought a jar of olives one time at university and forced myself to eat one every day for a month because I don't like having weaknesses and I was nervous for some reason that someone was going to exploit me by forcing me to eat an olive, and when I couldn't, then they would do something bad or something. So I can eat an olive. It's not absolutely the worst thing in the world. If there is a food that has olives in it, I will avoid that whole food just because of the olives. Any other food, even if it's not my favorite, I definitely will still eat it. The next sensory issue I'm going to talk about is touch. Feeling things on your body. This one's a weird one because some things I'm hypersensitive to and some things I'm not. I'm hypersensitive to the clothing that touches my skin, the fabrics that touch my skin. Some fabrics burn, some fabrics irritate me. The tags are awful, they feel horrendous. I can feel like every fiber, every seam. Socks are a big issue for me. Most of the time I'd like to not wear them. I don't like wearing bras because I can feel them all the time. I think it's the little things, the light things, I feel them. I prefer to wear tight clothes, and while it may suck being put on my body, once it's on my body, it doesn't move. Even if I move, it stays there. But with loose clothes, like this sweater, every time you move, you can feel it. This sweater's not a bad texture, so I don't mind it that much, but it's not something I would wear if I had to concentrate really hard at something because every time I move, I can feel it and then my focus goes to that. Also, this makes finding things that I'm going to touch a little hard, like with clothes. If I'm ordering online, I never know, is this something that's going to bother me if I touch it? Ordering online is always a gamble. The same goes for couches, chairs. I bought this chair online. I did not know that it was velvet. It said that it was suede. It's not suede! It's velvet in a bird. The weirdest thing though about being hypersensitive to things that touch my body is that I'm actually hyposensitive to pain. Like if I get hit or I hit myself or I bang myself on something. I don't think per se it's a high pain tolerance. I think it's a high pain threshold, which means that for something to really make me notice that it hurts, it needs to hurt a lot. Once it hurts a lot, I don't have a very good tolerance for it. I do not like it. It hurts too much. I actually have kind of a normal pain tolerance, but I have a really high pain threshold, which I find very strange because why is my body so angry at velvet, but then I could get punched and it would hurt less than velvet does? My skin maybe is just very sensitive. I know that. I have to be very careful with what I put on my skin. I have to use baby wash for my body because that's the only wash that doesn't make my skin angry. Little baby skin, baby skin. I scar very easily too. I believe this fits under this section, but I'm also hyposensitive to temperature changes. This could also be an interoception thing, knowing the temperature of my body and being able to regulate it, but I do not feel the heat in the cold as much as other people do. There's been hundreds of times I've walked outside dressed inappropriately for the weather. There are times when everyone around me is shivering and I'm perfectly fine and not even wearing as much clothes. And the funny thing is, it's not because I'm not cold. I actually am, and I just don't notice it. And same when I'm hot. If I'm overheating, if I'm wearing a sweater and it's in the heat, I actually am hot, but I just don't really notice it that well. My body can be doing what it usually does when someone is hot, sweating a lot, getting red, sometimes, but I just don't feel hot. I don't feel the need to change my body. Usually I have to ask somebody what's the appropriate thing to be wearing. I can't really tell for myself. People will say, step outside, feel it. It feels like normal to me, which is a segue into the next sense I want to talk about, and that is Interception. This may be a new one for some of you. I do have a separate video that's all about Interception, so you may have seen it already. If you haven't, I'll explain it. Interception is more or less your body telling your mind what it needs. It's messages that your body sends to let your brain know what it needs to do to keep your body in a good condition. Interception is basically the communication between your brain and your body. And my body is not very good at getting messages to my brain about what it needs. So my body does not tell me when I need to go to the bathroom. This was a very big problem for me when I was younger. When I was little, I would urinate maybe once a day. I wasn't doing it near enough, and I would get a lot of UTIs, a lot of kidney infections, and no one could really understand why, except that I wasn't peeing enough. That's what they always said. You're not peeing enough. When I was 10, my kidneys were very enlarged and we had to go to the doctor, and the doctor said if I continue this, because I was doing it to myself, I was going to need kidney transplants in a few years. And I knew I wasn't peeing enough, but I knew they wanted me to pee more, but I knew that I didn't feel the need to pee more. So then I started planning when I was going to go to the bathroom. It turns out this is a very common autistic thing. My body doesn't tell me when to go to the bathroom, so I have to figure it out for myself. I have to plan it. It's funny because when I plan it, when I do, it's clear that there are things to be eliminated from my body, but my body just didn't feel it. I was also chronically constipated for a long time for the same reason. I wasn't doing that thing either, maybe once a week. Anyway, now that I've scheduled when to go to the bathroom, things are going a lot smoother. And I'm also less irritated because it turns out your body is trying to tell your brain in some way, but doesn't come through the way that you think it should or that you feel it should. And sometimes you just get really angry and frustrated and uncomfortable and you don't know why. Sometimes when you get like that, go to the bathroom. Maybe that's all you needed. Another interoception problem I have is with hunger. I don't feel hunger. I'm not hungry. And I also don't feel full often either. I'm a pretty average to small human, and I can eat a lot. A lot. There have been loads of times where people have been shocked at the amount that I'm eating. Really what it is to me is, would my mouth enjoy eating that thing right now? I can see myself being hungry for an apple, but if someone says, are you hungry for a pear? No, I'm not hungry for a pear. It's the same amount of hunger, but my mouth would want an apple and not a pear. And actually, if you talk about pears, but I don't want a pear, then it's almost like I can feel it in my stomach that it's full. My mouth shuts off when you start talking about pears when I actually wanted an apple, and then I think that I'm full. I think, nope, I'm all done. So actually, I can eat a lot. I can eat a lot of something that I like. If it's something I do not like, I can still eat it and I will eat it. And when it is done, I will be done. Or if I'm having a really hard time finishing it because I don't like the taste of it very much, then I will not and say I am full. And I may not actually be full. Proprioception is the relationship that your body has to itself, also known as kinesthesia. It's the ability for your body to detect action and motion and movement within your own body. Hand-eye coordination is an example of proprioception. Knowing where your body is and what it's doing in relation to itself. How much space do you occupy? When you move, do you occupy a lot of space? Do you know where your body's moving at all times? And when it comes to proprioception, I think it's pretty poor. I think it's pretty poor because I'm not good at sports. That is one reason. I'm not good at hitting things, throwing things. When my body has to interact with other things, that's where it doesn't work very well. I also think I have poor proprioception because I bump into things a lot. Or I wouldn't call myself clumsy though. I think I just don't know how much space my body occupies, and then I walk into things way too much of the time or move and all of a sudden I'm hitting walls or hitting things or running into stuff. I also think I have poor proprioception because of a thing called Alice in Wonderland syndrome. And I've never been diagnosed with it. But basically, you know how Alice in Wonderland grows and shrinks when she has those things? And that's where the term Alice in Wonderland syndrome comes from. It's feeling like you're growing and you're shrinking, not really grasping your proportions and how your body is in relation to itself and where it is in space. And the thing with this is, it doesn't happen when I'm awake, but as soon as I close my eyes, when I close my eyes, I have no idea how big my body is. And when I'm falling asleep, often my body feels like it's stretching and it's so thin. It's not like I can feel it in my muscles or anything. That's just what it feels like my body is, how far apart my parts of my body feel like they are. And then I get so stretched this way. Sometimes I shrink really small. Sometimes I get really big. It's not happening. That's just what it feels like. Sometimes it's scary to fall asleep because my body, I just feel like it's just morphing into all these different proportions and I don't really know what my actual body is. And I have to keep constantly opening my eyes and looking at my fingers and touching my different parts together because I'm like, this is you, this is your body, this is the space your body occupies in relation to itself. When I'm sleeping, I'm often curled up into a ball and feeling every bit of me, so I know where my body is in relation to itself. But funny enough, when I'm awake and doing things, often I try to take up as much space as possible. I like to spread out. When I was in school, I often like to sit on the floor, spread my legs out really wide, and do all my work that way. I wonder if that was a proprioception thing, or if that's because I don't like things touching me very much, including myself sometimes. Maybe I just like moving. So I would say I'm hyposensitive to proprioception. I have a very poor idea of what my body is doing. And that's it. Those are the 7 senses that I wanted to talk to you about today. Please keep in mind that every person, especially every autistic person, is different. And while most, if not all, autistics have some kind of sensory issues, they may be hypersensitive in some areas and hyposensitive in others. Maybe there are some sensory issues that heavily impact how they live their day-to-day lives more than others. I hope this helped you learn a little bit more about autism. And thank you for being here. Thank you for learning, and thank you for asking questions. Thank you again to Scentbird for sponsoring this video, and thank you to you guys for knowing that sponsors do make this channel possible, and they help me put out new videos to you every week. So remember how I asked you guys to stick around to the end of the video because I wanted to ask you something? Well, I was thinking that we could do a little Q&A for next week's video. I know that I have a lot of questions all the time, and I don't get all that time to answer them. A lot of the times I get the same questions over and over again. So I want to answer everyone's questions, but I want to do it with your consent, that you know I may put this question in the video. So I was wondering, if you guys have any questions that you would like me to answer, please comment them down below, and I will be answering them all in my next week's video. Or as many as I can, because if there's, 50,000, that's gonna be difficult to do. I'm sure there won't be that many. But please comment below any questions that you want me to answer, and I hopefully will answer them in the video next week. And if you missed it, don't worry. I'm sure I will do more another time. I would like to answer all of the questions. So thank you guys so much for being here. That is all from me today. I hope you are staying safe, happy, and healthy, and I will talk to you later.